I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor.
Very, very rocky.
Death by government.
Drain the swamp.
Hello and welcome to another installment of Liberty Nation's Swamponomics videocast. I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor. Today, what's the deal with modern monetary theory? Also better known as MMT, this magical Frankenstein economic panacea proposes curing all of the world's ailments by spending and printing more. The quasi-counterfeiting scheme was introduced more than a decade ago into academia and has gained momentum in recent years, thanks mainly to economist Stephanie Kelton's book, The Deficit Myth. Put simply, deficits do not matter, a similar belief that former Vice President Dick Cheney had. But how is it any different from Keynesian economics? Nothing really, except perhaps it could be best described as Keynesianism on steroids. Maybe Mises Institute President Jeff Deese said it best a few years ago when he wrote, quote, MMT is not modern, not monetary, and not a theory. Still, it does grace headlines from time to time in business news publications. Consider the latest from Bloomberg News, titled, quote, The godfather of MMT says the US is spending like a drunken sailor. But this is a confusing title because this is exactly what MMTers want, spending like drunken sailors because the government can do whatever it desires since it controls the printing press. Remember, the MMTs might have derived their theory from what former Federal Reserve Chair Alan Greenspan said many years ago in a Meet the Press interview. The United States can pay any debt it has because it can always print money to do that. So there is zero probability of default. Indeed, this is accurate, but it is not without consequences. Inflation. Let's say the US government decided to be fiscally responsible and pay off its $35 trillion national debt. If all of Washington's bills and IOUs came due, it would have to hyperinflate the money supply, resulting in price hyperinflation and an evisceration of Americans' purchasing power. Of course, this will not happen, so you can rest easy. However, it is becoming harder to monetize the debt because demand for the astronomical increase in debt issuance has been tepid at best. Over the last 12 months, the Treasury Department has issued approximately $1 trillion in new debt, and there is more to come, based on the borrowing estimates from April, which project another $847 billion in borrowing from July to September. Ouch. Now, back to the meat and potatoes of MMT. Proponents desire 0% interest rates and Congress to be in charge of the printing press. This is already a main entree recipe for disaster as we have already imbibed some of the appetizers. We saw what happened when the Federal Reserve slashed interest rates to zero. The horrible consumer price index hit 9.1% in June 2022. Meanwhile, Congress is already indirectly in charge of the printing press since the Federal Reserve is enabling politicians on both sides of the aisle by monetizing their debts and deficits. That said, MMTers do not believe the country is covered in the flag of modern monetary theory. This is what Ms. Kelton wrote in 2020. Quote, An understanding of modern monetary theory matters greatly now. It could free policymakers not only to act boldly amid crises, but also to invest boldly in times of more stability. It matters because to lift America out of its current economic crisis, Congress does not need to find the money, as many say, in order to spend more. It just needs to find the votes and the political will. Now, this is hilarious, comical, entertaining malarkey because the government refrains all the time from trying to find the money. According to the Congressional Budget Office's latest Budget and Economic Outlook, Washington is poised to have a more than $10 trillion federal budget by 2034. And this is assuming the country does not slip into a recession or fight a major conflict or face a new pandemic that the globalists are itching for. The only thing to be born in the MMT world is a clip of White House economist Jared Bernstein, who could not explain why the US government borrows when it can just print. Here is the clip.
The US government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, because it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
Aside from this hilarious clip, MMT would only exacerbate the nation's economic, fiscal, monetary, and perhaps even political troubles. It's just simply allowing prisoners to officially run the asylum. You can put lipstick on a socialism, but it is still a philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. That's it for me this week. Please read my full Swamponomics column on the pages of LibertyNation.com, and be sure to check out my previous Swamponomics TV videos and interviews. Thank you. I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor.
Very, very rocky.
Death by government.
Drain the swamp.